Hey guys, welcome to 2021 and welcome to another video. So in our recent video we checked out the ATI Radeon X850 XT, the Platinum Edition, and I got quite a few comments about testing this card with Windows 98. And this is something I've never attempted before, and we have two systems here and the performance is outstanding. These two machines are my fastest Windows 98 PCs that I've put together, and I think you will like it. We made some really interesting findings. On the left side we have a system using AGP, but the system on the right is even faster, and this one uses PCI Express. And I thought PCI Express doesn't work under Windows 98, but I kept getting a few comments, so let's look into this issue. Now, I began working on this project at the end of last year, and these two main boards are used first. So this motherboard has been used in many videos on the channel. It's a GA P43T ES3G. But I couldn't get the PCI Express to work, so I tried another mainboard. This one is from ASUS with a G41 chipset, the P5 G41T-M LX3. I did a little bit of online research, and on Vogons I found one specific user who had success with this mainboard. It's the ASRock 939 Dual Solder 2. Unfortunately, this one also didn't work for me. So what happened after installing Windows 98? I then installed the video card drivers, Catalyst 6.2. But when looking into the device manager, there was a code error 12. The device cannot find any free input and output resources to use. Now, at that point, I had already spent a few days in the lab and not having much to show for. So I switched to AGP. This one is the ASRock 775 i65G, the version 3.03. This one is quite unique, LGA 775, but with AGP and 100% Windows 98 compatibility. Now with this mainboard I'm using the AGP version of the X850 XT, and performance was outstanding. Now I couldn't finish the video at the end of last year. I had to travel to Perth, a little bit of a vacation, plus I had my wisdom teeth removed, so that was an interesting experience. But now I'm back and I kept an eye on the comments. I kept thinking I must be missing something really obvious, seeing that three boards didn't work for me and other people had success. But there was no specific information as to what components people used and what settings. So yeah, still my mind was busy and I kept an eye on the comments, interacting with people. And finally, I got a message from the Retro Computing and Gaming YouTube channel, and he gave me a big clue as to what I might be missing. And the solution is going into the device manager and disabling the non-functioning video device. And then after a reboot and playing around with the color depth settings and the resolution, finally we have working graphics. So this is the fourth mainboard I've been playing around with. It's from ASUS, the P5K PLAM SE, and this one has a G31 chipset. Before we continue with the video, let's check out the AGP system in more detail first. So LGA 775, but with an AGP chipset from Intel, the 865. We're using dual channel memory. Those are two modules with 512 megabytes. DDR, we have 3 PCI slots, SATA ports, and this is a fantastic motherboard. But it is quite difficult to find. It's quite sought after because it combines AGP with LGA 775. And the processor we're using, it's a Intel Pentium E5800, runs at 3.2 gigahertz, and I believe this is the highest clocked processor that is supported with this mainboard. Now, much more interesting and fun is the PCI Express system. So here we're using the Intel Core 2 Duo E8600. This is the fastest Core 2, running at 3.33 gigahertz. We have DDR2 memory. These are two modules with 512 megabyte each, so we've got a gigabyte of RAM in dual channel configuration. PCI Express 16X, 1X, and a PCI slot. We have two SATA ports and one IDE port. At the back, we have two PS2 serial VGA, 4 USB 2.0, fast Ethernet with 100 megabits per second, and also audio out. Now, I have built Windows 98 machines using a PCI Express mainboard in the past, but I used a PCI graphics card. In this video, however, we will finally be using a PCI Express video card, and unbelievable, it fully works and the performance is absolutely amazing. In terms of BIOS settings, we have flashed the latest BIOS, then I load the defaults and I disable any onboard devices that we're not going to use. Now the Ethernet port actually works under Windows 98. I did find a driver, but I disabled the onboard audio. I also disabled the onboard graphics because we're using a dedicated PCI Express video card. And there's an interesting option with the storage controller. I'm using a SATA SSD connected to SATA 1, so you have to go into the BIOS and make sure the storage controller is set to compatible, not enhanced, and I configured only the SATA ports to work. But if you also want to use an optical drive, connect the optical drive to the IDE port, and then there's a option where you can have the first SATA port as a primary and the IDE port as a secondary. This is the SSD we're using from SanDisk. It's got a capacity of 64 gigabytes, perfect for Windows 98, and performance turned out to be absolutely amazing. Here we have ATTO disk benchmark, over 200 megabytes per second. I've never seen a result that quick in Windows 98 SE. And the cool thing is, no drivers required. I couldn't believe it. All you have to do is go into the device manager and make sure the DMA mode is active, and that's all it took. For input devices, you can use the PS2 ports, but USB also worked. I tested with a Microsoft wireless keyboard and a Logitech USB mouse. The mainboard has a single PCI slot, so the next thing we needed to add was a sound card. This is a Sound Blaster Live 5.1 with the model number SB0100, and yeah, I found an alternative way of installing drivers. Joseph from the Vogon's website, he wrote a guide of using the Audigy 2 drivers to install with your Sound Blaster Live, and that worked flawless. Maybe I'll do a little video guide on that in a future video, but yeah, now we have sound as well. Now, in past videos, I haven't done too much on networking, but recently we got a NAS from Asus Store sent to the channel and 56 terabytes of hard drives from Western Digital. So all my games, everything is now sitting on the NAS. So networking will get a little bit of a focus in future videos. And this is a fast Ethernet controller. So using FileZilla running on Windows 98 and copying files from the FTP server that runs on the NAS, we're seeing just over 8 megabytes per second. And stay tuned for future videos where I will show you how you can network Windows 98 and MS-DOS with your NAS. I always look for new methods of installing Windows 98 onto computers to make our life a little bit easier. This time I used a different process. I used a USB floppy drive and a Windows 98 boot disk to partition and format our SSD. And then using Rufus, I created a free DOS USB flash drive, copied the Windows 98 installation files onto the USB, booted off that USB, copied the Windows 98 files onto the SSD, and then installed it from there. So that was a smooth process without having to use an optical drive, just USB devices to install Windows 98. After Windows 98 is finished installing, we have to run some driver installations. There are no chipset drivers, but we need drivers for the video card. We have Catalyst 6.2, which supports various X series Radeon cards like the 300, 500, 600, 700, 800 and 850. All of those cards should work just fine. And after the driver is installed, go into the device manager, look under the video cards and disable the one that doesn't work. It's got an explanation mark, and then reboot the machine. And then I also had to go into the display settings, increase the color depth, and then do another reboot. And then I was able to change the resolution, and now we have working 3D acceleration. I installed also DirectX 9, then a few benchmarks and some games. And of course I installed the drivers for the Sound Blaster Live. Now we're gonna quickly talk about the video cards that I played around with in this project. First up is the X600, but it turns out this is a very slow variant of that card. It has 4 pixel pipelines, GPU clock 324 megahertz. We have 256 megabytes of VRAM connected through a 128-bit interface and clocked at 196 megahertz. But yeah, do keep in mind that this seems to be one of the slowest X600 cards out there. This is a X800 GT with 8 pixel pipelines. GPU clock is 472. We have 256 megabytes of VRAM, 256-bit memory interface, and the memory speed is 493 megahertz. And this is the fastest Radeon that works under Windows 98. It is the X850 XT Platinum Edition, 16 pixel pipelines, 540 megahertz GPU clock, 256 megabytes of memory, and with a 256-bit interface running at 587 megahertz. And also a little surprise, we have a FireGL workstation card. This is the V50-100, and I believe it matches up with the X800 Pro. 12 pixel pipelines running at 452 megahertz. We have 128 megabytes of VRAM, 256-bit interface running the RAM at 351 megahertz. And this one the drivers wouldn't install. You have to go into the device manager and manually force a driver. I went with the X800 Pro, and to my surprise, it worked. And even OpenGL games, I tried Quake 2 and Quake 3 with these FireGL cards. The OpenGL drivers can sometimes, not function properly, but seems to work. So stay tuned. Maybe in future videos, I've got a few other FireGL cards that might run with Windows 98 and in the PCI Express format. So very exciting because this, makes more cards available to us. Before we compare the individual video cards with each other, let's compare these two high-end systems. So on the left side, Pentium dual-core E5800 with the AGP X850 XT goes against the Core 2 Duo with the E8600 and the X850 XT Platinum Edition with PCI Express. And here are the results. The blue bar is the AGP system, and the orange bar is PCI Express. And we've got 3D Mark 99 Max, 2000 and 2001 SE. And you can see the PCI Express system is faster. This is mostly because of the stronger processor, because we are CPU limited with these benchmarks. The resolution is fairly low. These benchmarks are not very demanding. And now we will focus on just the PCI Express system. So let's see how these video cards compare. So the blue bar is the Radeon X600, the orange bar is the X800 GT, and the gray bar is the X850 XT, the Platinum Edition. And what we can see is that the X600, struggles, but do keep in mind this is one of the slowest versions that I could find. We can also see that the difference between the X800 GT and the X850 XT Platinum Edition is not that great, despite the X800 GT only having 8 pixel shader pipelines, whereas the X850 XT PE has 16. And this is, once again, we are CPU limited in this benchmark. You will see a much bigger difference when you crank up the resolution in more demanding games, as well as playing around with anti-aliasing and anisotropic filtering. And in this graph, we are using the X850 XT Platinum Edition in 3 games. The blue bar is 1024 by 768. So we're getting around 400 FPS in Draken, around 600 in Quake 3, and 495 in Expendable. And these numbers are the highest I've ever seen building or putting together a Windows 98 retro gaming PC. Cranking up the resolution to 1600 by 1200, we can see in the Direct 3D games, not much changes. OpenGL, we lose quite a bit of performance from 600 to 400 FPS, and that might just be because Radeon cards are traditionally not that good with OpenGL. They are much stronger with Direct 3D, but 400 FPS is still extremely playable. Then the gray bar, I've got the games running at 1600 by 1200, but in the driver I forced 4x anti-aliasing and 16x anisotropic filtering. and still playable. We're getting over 200 FPS in Draken, almost 300 FPS in Expendable. Only in Quake 3, the game just wouldn't work. So could be a driver bug, and that's something you will have to live using such high-end parts. Not every game, not every setting will work. It's just, it is what it is. So most of the time spent was actually fighting these main boards, and I didn't get around to testing too many games. But I tried a few. Tomb Raider 2, running here 1024x768 with 4x anti-aliasing, or maybe even 6x and 6x. And anisotropic filtering runs flawless, of course. Quake 2 runs beautifully. Quake 3 without any issues. I tested Expendable. I also tested a racing game, Insane. That also worked fine. Draken also had no issues. There is more testing to be done. And also you guys out there, the community, if you put something like this together, shoot me a message. Which games seem to have issues with such a modern video card? If you know anything, I want to hear from you. The Radeon cards are not compatible with table fog and palletized textures. I'm also not sure what the 16-bit color quality is like. So definitely you are building a high-end machine here for some of the later Windows 98 games, and not so much the older ones where you're better off with a 3DFX Voodoo card. In some of the comments I got when people asked me to test these video cards under Windows 98 is for the purpose of dual booting between Windows 98 and Windows XP. Now, personally, and this is my personal opinion, I believe DOS and Windows 98, that's a good combination to build a time machine that can cover a wide range of games, and then build another machine that can do Windows XP, Vista, and Windows 7. Crossing over between Windows 98 and Windows XP is also always going to be more challenging, and you will run into more issues, but it is possible. So one challenge is the RAM. 512 megabytes and a gigabyte of RAM seems to be working just fine under Windows 98, but if you have more RAM, you will have issues. But luckily, there's a patch from Rudolf Löw, and what you do is you build the machine first, for example, with 512 megabytes of RAM, install everything, all drivers, set up everything the way you like, and then you run the patch, shut down the machine, upgrade the RAM. I went with 2 gigabytes, boot into Windows 98, and it's working without any issues. You can see a screenshot here with the machine reporting 2 gigabytes of memory. Now, Rudolf Löw, unfortunately, he passed away, and the software used to be commercial and you had to pay for it, but his family made it available for free. So that's awesome for the community. And I will put a link down below in the video description to the archive where you can download all his work. So guys, I spent way too much time on this project and my lab is a mess. I can't wait to finish this video, upload it, and then clean everything up and move on to the next one. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, testing more video cards. I believe something like an X700 series video card would work really well. But also, what about NVIDIA? I've been told you can modify some drivers and then get a 6600 GT or 6800 also running under Windows 98. So lots of things I want to look into. Now, why am I so excited about this? It's availability and prices. So the system on the left is probably what's going to work better, more compatible. All the Windows 98 drivers are ready to go. You can use older HEP cards without any issues. But finding a high-end X850 XT with HEP and also a mainboard like this that has LGA 775 with an HEP port, these mainboards are sought after and you will definitely have to pay a premium. Same goes for high-end HEP video cards. PCI Express, however, LGA 775 boards with PCI Express, they are cheap as chips. In terms of value, these are probably the best value parts you can find at the moment. Boards available on AliExpress, locally on eBay, wherever you look, these will be available for cheap. Maybe someone even gives them away for free. RAM, DDR2 RAM is also really easy to find. a Core 2 processor, cheapest chips, and same with the video cards. The PCI Express version should be available for less than AGP. There should be more out there. You've got a wider range from X300 all the way to X850, and yeah, in the future maybe even NVIDIA. So what an interesting project. And you've seen the numbers. The performance is unreal. It's the highest numbers I've ever seen under Windows 98, and that is always fun, seeing benchmarks running at 600 FPS. Absolutely fantastic. So we are at the end of the video. I'm really eager to hear your thoughts about this project with the PCI Express interface. I think it opens doors. It gives us more parts for the community, and that's always a good thing. Means lower prices, more parts are available, and that is always a good thing because with a high-end AGP system, I'm fully aware prices are high. It's sought after. Collectors are holding on to their parts. It is what it is. So looking forward, let me know what else do you want to see to do with high-end Windows 98 gaming. What sort of video cards? Probably everyone wants to see GeForce cards on PCI Express, so that's something maybe for a future project. But in the near future, we will have some videos to do with the NAS. So the idea is connecting your retro PCs from DOS to Windows 98 to XP to your NAS, where you can access all your games, download everything conveniently. And for me, it has made my life really easy. Everything is on one device now, rather than running around with USB hard drives and USB flash drives. I just make sure I have the network driver, and it is actually really straightforward to access the NAS under Windows 98. And I think we are done with this video, guys. As always, leave a comment. I read every single one of you. You might not get a reply, but I do read every comment. Give it a like, share the video with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed and you found this interesting, sub to the channel. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you soon with another one.